Hey y'all, what's going on? What's going on? I am back in Georgia. Back in Georgia. Just got in tonight. I had a really good time in Southern California. Like I say, it's the homeland. It's where my people are. All my people are still there. Your girl sometimes thinks about going back, but that's another discussion for another day. I'm a little tired, but you know what? I wanted to get this out because I'm gonna be attending a workshop soon. So the workshop in question is actually the Badass Workshop with Bozoma St. John. Oh, it's March 15th now because it's early Saturday. So the workshop is actually happening on Monday and I got VIP tickets. I'm super excited because with the VIP access, you actually get to get close to her and, chat with her and then I could have her sign my book. I mean, I'm super stoked. Like I said, this lady is amazing. She's amazing. She for what I'm currently dealing with in my life, she represents basically, that life can be, you can still have, a good life. You can still have a quality of life, and fulfill your purpose even after devastation. And like I said, this lady's a widow, she's a corporate baddie. She's raising a biracial child. She's been dealing with grief her whole life, yet she still chooses to thrive. And why that is so significant to me, I'll just, be frank. Growing up the way that I grew up, people weren't really given the opportunity to rise above devastating circumstances. I mean, and if you did it out of survival, right? You did what you had to do to survive. So it's nice to see, especially a darker woman, if I'm just really going there, monoracial, that was able to rise out of her circumstances and continue to thrive. But I'm seeing a theme in reading her book that I don't necessarily see, within our community. I don't want to go there, but her parents were very forward thinking. They pushed education, they pushed morals, values, ethics on her. And, when you're in constant survival mode, you can't be at your best. So a lot of times that's why you don't see those types of things pushed in certain communities because people are surviving, right? I mean, but we're all surviving. It's a choice to want to thrive. And that's why I love this representation because, again, the circumstances that I grew up in, and even now, like with certain core people in my life, they still have survival mindsets hidden in different, viewpoints and perspectives. And so as I get older, I'm like, I have to get away from that because I want to thrive. I want to thrive. I want to get everything that God wants me to have. God wants me to have an amazing life. I don't want to settle for less. So if I have to shift perspectives, if I have to shift hanging out with certain people, if I have to shift even getting away from family members, I will do that. I will do that. But that's not what we're here for. Like I said, I was going to try to get this review out or get it started at least before I went to the workshop because I did want to talk to her about that as well. Yes, I'm a fangirl, okay? No shame in my game. But this book is good. I've already read chapters 1 through 3. That's what I'm going to be recapping today. But before we get into it, because I've just been rambling, please like, comment, subscribe, and share the videos, okay? All right. So, The Urgent Life, my story of love, loss, and survival by Bozoma St. John. Let's get into it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start with some intros, right? Okay. So in the back of the book, I have the hardcover. It has this little insert here that kind of gives you a little bit of backstory to Bozoma. I'll go ahead and read that. Bozoma St. John is an influencer and American businesswoman who has had a stellar career in marketing, most recently as the Global Chief Marketing Officer at Netflix. She began her career at Spike Lee's advertising agency, going on to become a senior marketing executive at Pepsi, Apple Music, Uber, and Endeavor. She has been featured on the cover of Adweek as one of the most exciting personalities in advertising. I mean, she is. She's pretty great, real bubbly and just vivacious. And has been inducted into the American Advertising Federation Hall of Achievement, as well as the American Marketing Hall of Fame, among others. Bozoma was named the #1 most influential chief marketing officer by Forbes in 2021 and has created a successful online tutorial called the Badass Workshop, which teaches others to be their greatest selves. That's the one I'm going to be going to on Monday. All right, so now we have some praises here. There's some in the back, but I'm just going to read this one. And then I'm going to read this little insert here. And then this kind of gives you the context as to why she wrote the book. So, infused with determination, spirituality, and passion, the urgent life will make you want to pour into everything. Pour yourself into everything. And you do, and wring the most out of every single day. Katie Couric. Exactly. Exactly. I'm going to read that again. Pour yourself into everything you do. Right? Don't shortcut yourself. Don't shortchange yourself. From iconic leader Bozoma St. John comes a memoir of grief and one woman's drive to thrive in the face of loss. When Bozoma St. John's husband Peter died of cancer, she made one big decision: to live life urgently. Bozoma was no stranger to adversity, having lost her college boyfriend to suicide, navigated an interracial marriage, grieved a child born prematurely, a process that led to her and Peter's separation, and co-parented the daughter she and Peter shared. When Peter knew his cancer was terminal, he gave Bozoma a short list of things to do: cancel the divorce and fix the wrongs immediately. In The Urgent Life, Bozoma takes readers through the dizzying numbing days of multiple griefs and the courage they sparked in her to live in accordance with her deepest values time and time again. We witness Bozoma's journey forward through the highs and the lows as she negotiates life as a woman determined to learn from tragedies, to build a remarkable life worth living, even in her brokenness. Bozoma's story is extraordinary, but her grief is not uncommon. Her courage is sure to touch any reader who has loved and mourned, who is finding a path through loss and grief, as well as anyone who is maneuvering a pivot and wants to live life to its fullest. Now, I'm going to read this little quote that she has at the beginning of her book, and then I'm going to kind of chime in on why I love this woman, and I just love the messaging in her story. This is a quote by Diane Ackerman, and I've actually posted this on my social media as well. I don't want to get to the end of my life and find that I have just lived the length of it. I want to have lived the width of it as well. And then I'm going to read this last sentence again. Her courage is sure to touch any reader who has loved and mourned, who is finding a path through loss and grief, as well as anyone who is maneuvering a pivot and wants to live life to its fullest. Now, the reason why that messaging is so important to me is because instead of choosing to allow your vices to get the best of you, because let's face it, people go through loss, and if you want to wallow in self-pity, or if you feel like you need to give yourself grace, we permit ourselves and we make allowances for ourselves to go out there and be self-destructive. I'll be candid with you. After I lost my husband, while I was honest with myself, he and I had fallen out of love, and I was not in love with him 3 years before. It was 3 years up until he passed. He broke my trust very badly in 2020, and we could not get back on our footing after that. So I got into a situation because I thought it was a second chance at love. I thought God was, giving me a chance and using this person, as a representation of that. But I had manifested that based on things in myself that I hadn't properly healed. It'll make more sense as I talk about it later, but I found myself, instead of facing the grief 100% in losing my husband, turning to behaviors with this person and within this person that made me feel comfortable, but they were not productive. Okay. They were not like forward thinking. I was basically trying to, I was a resource to this person. I was nothing to them. But because I thought I wanted it so bad and I just wanted to feel some happiness after that grief, I clung to that instead of looking in the mirror, productively facing my grief by maybe exercising, by maybe joining support groups, by maybe changing the way that I ate. No, I wanted to be up under someone, right? That's a vice of mine, to have that closeness. I didn't want to face life alone. You know, I do still love this person, but I love myself more, and I got out of that haze. And that was me running from really facing the grief in a healthy way. So Bozoma, she represents someone that grieves healthily, because just like me, you have people that go out there and they medicate by way of street drugs, alcohol, sex, food, okay, sleeping, like just basically dying inside, right? So Bozoma represents that there could still be life inside of you, you know, and you could still grow and grow and grow and do better. Now, it's important to me because, again, like I said, representation is very important, because I don't see a lot, you know, at least in my day-to-day life, of someone that has gone through similar situations as me, and they are continuing to thrive, but they are thriving very, very full. Like their life is full. Like this woman, she was able to retire, okay? She believed in herself, started her own business, okay? Put herself out there, wrote a book. I want to write a book. I want to do more than what I'm doing right now, you know? I'm great. I'm doing beautiful, but I know that there is something more out there for me, because I don't box myself in. So again, it's very deep for me, the connection that I have with this lady, and I have so much respect for her. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, I'm going to review chapters 1 through 3. I'm going to try to be quick, you know, some like in summary, because if you see my other reviews, like my White Lotus review, you know that I tend to get really stuck on details in my notes. But with this one, I'm going to try to be as concise, right? So the first chapter, it's called The Beginning and the End. Basically, in this chapter, she speaks on how she met her husband. She also speaks about how her husband and her mother were battling cancer. She goes into the backstory, you know, of her family, her aunts, how her father was the only son of I think he was a tribal king. And he was also, he had multiple wives, her father's father. So the son, when the father passed, I think the mother, her grandmother passed away, her father ended up, you know, being raised by, I think, her aunts, she said, not the stepmothers, because again, the father had other wives, but the stepmothers. So the father was raised in a matrilineal, you know, family, and that really made him want to have a boy, because he's like, I'm the only son of a king, and I need to bear my name. I need to carry on that name. So when he got Bozoma as his first child, you know, she's the girl, but he still inflicted on her and expected of her what he would expect from a firstborn son. So let's see. One of the first, like the earlier scenarios she mentions in chapter 1 as well, is she kind of goes back and forth from being in the hospital to going to like flashbacks of times in her life that were either before the death or like when she was young. So she speaks about being in the hospital with Peter, and she's working, and you know, she doesn't want to face the truth of what's going on, but she knows the inevitable is coming. Her and Peter were separated at this point, but they were still, you know, once he got the diagnosis, it's like that was out of the window. So they had kind of a strange energy. I could almost understand exactly what she may have felt, because my husband and I, like I said, we were emotionally separated for 3 years. So when he died, I was in a strange place emotionally. Like, cause it's like, God, wow, like here today, gone tomorrow, and we never got to reconcile. We never got to find peace within. So I was glad that to some degree she was able to find peace within with Peter, because at least it was a process as opposed to it being an abrupt death. But still, even still, because she was already checked out in the sense, her and Peter were already, well, I don't know, I don't think Peter was, but she was already checked out, emotionally with him. And I I know it just, oh, I just know. I know the feeling. So, let's see. Oh, okay. So she spoke about a time at the hospital when she was walking in, because she got a call while she was at work to come to the hospital because it was getting bad for Peter. And she says there was a photo taken of her as she went into the hospital, or no, when she went into the office, that little did that person know they were, because I think this was the day Peter passed on, they would be, what did she say? The last photo of normalcy for her. Yes, that's what she says. So I actually have sections in the books that I highlighted because I wanted to read them when I'm speaking about the particular scene. Let's see. Okay, so yes, she says that she didn't really know what to do once she realized the inevitable was coming. And she said she was fluent in social media, but she didn't think of any outlet. Like, she was trying to find an outlet to help her express her grief. And again, this is why it's like, this is me, because before I read this book, I actually made the decision. I didn't even know she had did this, but it's like parallel universe. I made the decision after I ended that relationship I was in after my husband passed away. Me and that person broke up in December, and I had always wanted to get into YouTube and be a content creator, but I had always put it off. The minute he and I split up, I want to say maybe a week later, it was like, no. I started channeling my grief in creative outlets. So I turned to social media as well. So that's where the whole IOU psych handle is, I have all those things, those reels on my page, they're blowing up. That's just a way of for me to express myself. I now have the YouTube channel where I'm doing multiple recaps. I've, started doing some brand ambassador stuff. I just pushed myself because it's there. Why not, right? So, this is what she says. I was fluent in social media, but I wasn't one of those people who shared her most intimate thoughts there. I didn't vent about politics on Facebook or do Instagram videos on climate change when I spotted litter in Morningside Park. But now, I was going to try to express my feelings of foreboding in 140 characters or fewer. My tweet was simple and vague. I feel uneasy, I wrote. Does anyone else? I got one response back from someone I barely knew. Yes, she said, I feel it too. So people may mock it, but I get that. I get why she did that. Instead of turning to a vice, right, you're using a vehicle to help you express your grief, a channel to help you express your grief. And, some people may not get it, because some people are like, oh, you should be private, and, I don't want to put things on social media. Fuck that. Okay, I understand you want to be private, or you feel like there's a strong need for that to protect yourself because you don't want to put things out there and then people can sabotage you. But this is grief, right? We're not thinking about how people are going to hurt me or how people are going to take my agency or try to destroy my life. What's for you is for you. And if you are a believer, like Bose is also a believer, I'm a believer, God is going to cover you. God is going to cover you and still reserve for you what is for you. And social media is not going to destroy that. As long as you're not being disrespectful to groups or, exploiting people, why not just creatively express yourself? I don't like that people are judgmental in that aspect. So when she said that, I was like, yes, that's exactly how I felt I just needed to express myself. And it's done wonders. It's done wonders. You know, I find myself trying to always find ways to be creative, to make someone laugh, to give insight on something, to recap something that means something to me. I mean, I get it. Need I go on? All right, so still on chapter 1. I'm already kind of messing up with the whole summary thing, so sorry, y'all. But she goes into how she met Peter, and she was at the time working with Spike Lee because she was a assistant of Spike Lee's. So they shared a building. Peter worked somewhere else, and she worked somewhere else. And she spoke about how at lunch, or no, breakfast. She's in line and she's very meticulous about how she orders. So I guess Peter got irritated with that and, you know, made a comment to her. And she's like, who are you? You know, because she's a queen. She's like, you're not going to disrespect me. And, you know, he wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but he was being very pushy and assertive with her. And she didn't like that. So she speaks about how he wore a gold chain and she couldn't take him seriously, and how she, you know, noticed he was statuesque because he was like over 6 feet. I think he was 6'5", had red hair, was Italian. So she's like, this clown, like, I don't have to take you serious. So let me see. She says here though, and this is when she said, okay, let me test him. Let me test him and see what he's about or whatever, right? The next day, he orders the sandwich for her, or a time later, he orders her sandwich for her because he wanted to basically have it ready for her and not have her wait or cause wait in the line. So that kind of impressed her, which opened the door for him to make his next move, which was he asked her out to dinner, and she was hesitant. She said, all right, I'm gonna test you. Read my favorite book, Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. Not only did he read it, 2 weeks later, he was giving her tremendous insight, and he had a profound interest in the African American experience. So she said when she saw that, she was sold. And November 9th, they had their first date. This is what's crazy about this date, November 9th. My late husband, his father passed on November 9th. My recent ex, his father also passed on November 9th. So I thought that was, I don't want to say weird because that's so juvenile and, you know, not, it doesn't pay respect to the date, but I thought that was amazing. And it definitely touched me as I was reading it, because I thought of them, both of them, and I was like, wow. Lord, and the overlaps, right? Overlaps with the numbers. All right. So she talks about their stark contrast in their upbringing, how, you know, Peter was raised in an Italian American household. He's the youngest of 6. She's the firstborn to Ghanaian immigrants of 4. She was born in Middleton, Connecticut. She said their love spiraled pretty quickly, you know, as, you know, people who have chemistry do and make an impression on each other do. And then, you know, by her birthday, which is January 21st, because they went on their date November 9th, she says she realized she couldn't live without him. It happens like that sometimes, right? You have that punch drunk, like whirlwind love. Like, I believe in that. I'm a hopeless romantic. You know, that's how it happened for me and this recent person. And then me and my late husband, it was kind of slower for us. Like, it took us maybe like a year before things kicked off, but we connected really quickly. But it was like we had a pause and we weren't able to move as fast. Oh my God. Let me stop. Y'all know I go on a tangent. Lord, be with me. Keep my mind focused and my people engaged. All right. So then it goes back to the hospital in chapter 1 after she's, you know, given us the backstory of her and Peter. And then she says that she realized that the apparent was near, the end was near, and her and Peter had a shared acceptance in this, had to face what was happening. I believe I have something highlighted to that effect as well in here. Let me find it really quick. Okay, yes. So this is when she says she gets to the the front desk where the nurses and the physicians are huddled. And she said, I finally arrived. I passed the front desk where nurses and physicians huddled and scurried and approached the hallway where Peter's room was located. Before I turned the corner, I could hear his mother and sister talking. They spoke in hurried, frantic whispers. I started to sweat. My palms began to itch. I didn't want to enter that hallway, but I had to face it. My mother-in-law saw me. I saw her. And without a word, I knew. Oh, Bozoma. That was all she said. And what she felt was coming had arrived. Okay, cool. I did highlight another section, but I don't think I need to read that because I kind of, summarized that really well. All right, so there is something that she says in chapter 1 on the last page that I do want to read. I highlighted that. This is once she accepted the inevitable, right? So she says, I had to open my eyes and face it. Everything always seems so much worse in the dark. So much worse when you don't know what it is. To overcome our greatest fears, we have to confront them. Like a child lifting the covers, grabbing a flashlight and peering under the bed to make sure that the boogeyman isn't there after all. Or maybe he is, but at least now you can see him fully. Knowing what you are up against, you can brace yourself, then gather the energy for the fight. Again, that's looking into it. So I like that metaphor she uses where, because when we were kids, if you felt like there was a boogeyman under your bed or something in the closet, you didn't want to necessarily look in the closet or under the bed, right? So you were avoiding. It's not good to avoid. She's basically saying here, I had to face what was going on. I couldn't run from it by way of work. I couldn't run from it by way of hoping for the best. I had to accept it for what it was. That's essentially what I ended up having to do when my late husband passed away. And I would always tell myself, can't question God's will. I can't question God's will. And that's pretty much what I had to tell my daughter. I'm teaching a 7-year-old this. So, like I said, I feel like that's healthy instead of doing whatever it is you feel you need to do to suppress the pain. You have to face it. Because it's going to hurt you either way. Avoiding it or facing it. So, chapter 2, shall we? So, chapter 2 is called Common Ground. Now, in here, she kind of speaks a little bit more about her dynamic with her father. And she does talk about Peter as well. They're still in the hospital. This is before he passes. So this is when, they're having their visits. And she speaks about how Peter was big on lists. So she didn't like lists, but this is what kept him organized. She references how he told her to make a list on things to do. And on the list, it was to call his brothers, call his godparents, call, her dad, call different family members. She calls her dad, and I believe he flew in from Atlanta. And then it goes back to 2001, because I think Peter passed it was 2013 or 2014. So like I said, she vacillates between different time periods in the chapters. So here is when she speaks about her father in 2001. Not 2000, not her father. She's speaking about Peter in 2001. In 2001, they were together for 8 months, and they had decided that they were going to move in together. She says she had to tell her dad. Her dad was not happy about that. In fact, he asked her why, because he did not feel like Peter was what he saw for her. He wanted her to marry someone similar to them, preferably Ghanaian, Christian, a professional, maybe a doctor, lawyer, engineer. He didn't understand why she wanted to marry a white man who wouldn't be able to connect with her culture. I get that. I get that. But you love who loves you. It's, as a parent that's an immigrant, right? You have your spouse that you brought from the motherland. But I will tell you, as a Black woman myself, that has certain aspirations. I speak a certain way, even though I still have elements of my upbringing in me. The way that I present myself and how I show up in the world and how I go out after the world, I don't necessarily subscribe to a lot of those characteristics that are of my upbringing. So when you don't subscribe to that, and if you're a darker skinned woman, let's just be real about that, you're monoracial, right? So you're not mixed. It it's harder to date men within your own race and still be treated with quality, right? It's like we almost have to settle if we're going with someone within our own race. We have to settle because then the ones that we would want, they don't want us. So you love who loves you. You know, I'm another conversation. So now this is a part where she goes back to when she was born, 1977. I already mentioned how her dad said he wanted a son. She was named after her grandmother, her father's mother that passed away. And like I mentioned earlier, how her father was raised by women, so he was raised in a matrilineal community. Her father, I already touched on this in the first chapter, so I kind of jumped around. So let me skip to this part. Okay. So the naming. She says that the way they name, now this is gonna confuse me. I can't remember exactly how it was. So basically, how they name children is you name after the order, the birth order of the siblings. The father gets to choose. So if the father chooses like a firstborn figure or whatever, whoever follows after that, that's who you name the child after. So if you have a firstborn, they're going to be named after the firstborn. You have a secondborn, they're going to be named after who's second after them, and vice versa. Her daughter, her youngest sister was actually named after her mother because her mother was pregnant while her father was in prison. Her father ended up being thrown in prison for, I think it was like 7 or 8 months, and they had to flee to America, and her mother went through so much trauma, and to honor her, her father opted to name her younger sister after her mother, which I thought that was beautiful. And she says that even though her parents split up, her mother always, loved him for that and appreciated that he did that for her. She said her dad was very adamant about education, and I totally understand that. And I hate to sound the way, however I sound, that's how it is with other cultures. They push education, so it's not lost on me with her having African parents that they would not be adamant about it. But I've adopted that. I wasn't raised with that. Again, I was raised by people who were blue collar, and as long as you're working and paying the bills, why strive for more, right? Why go beyond, what you have to, as long as you're getting by. That was one of the reasons I was also kind of like hesitant to go back to school, as I mentioned in one of my life stories that I have on my playlist. Yeah, I was like, okay, as long as I'm making it, it's all right. But when that lady said what she said at the bar, woke your girl up and it pushed her. So, I push education too now with my daughter. Let's see. Okay, so we're done with that one. And then I think I highlighted, there was something I did want to read in chapter 2. There was, because she's got some. Okay. So, this is when she talks about so she spoke about how they moved in with each other in the first chapter, but we get into the details of how that interaction went down between Peter and her father because they decided to move in together. So she talks about how her father was in China, so she thought, but he actually ended up in New York as soon as he heard that they had moved in with each other. So her dad called Peter, I guess met Peter at his office, called Bozoma from Peter's office and said this: "I'm here in Peter's office." And she was scared because he said, "Bozoma, I'm here in Peter's office." And she knew she was in trouble because, well, not in trouble, but she knew he wasn't happy because he gave her the nickname Boz. So whenever she heard her full name, she knew that, oh, he wasn't happy. So he tells her, you know, this conversation is for men, because he's like, nah, I need to talk to him and let him know what's going on, because she was gonna rush there and talk to him. So she said, all right, well, let me know when you're done and I'll come up here and talk to you. So she said he sounded like a character from a bad 70s sitcom. And she was trying to get a handle on her thoughts, because for her, again, her dad had a certain expectation, right? So yes, just because she was a woman, he still held her to certain morals. So for a son, he would have probably had a different structure. But for a woman, he's like, okay, no, you're not going to be living with someone out of wedlock. You at least need to be a wife. And I understand that, I understand that. But after, I guess, the conversation went down, it ended up working out, because he says, I have given my blessing for you to live together, but I don't like it. I think it's disrespectful, and I don't know why a man would come into another man's house and take his daughter without asking him for permission. She said Peter and her stood there silent. And I get that. Now, this part, because I totally feel her on this. She says, when she looks back at that day, it's startlingly clear to me that sometimes even those who love you the most, who have the best of intentions, fail to understand what you need because of their own limitations. I was starting to learn that while my father could urgently offer his opinion, he couldn't really advise me, because my life, my journey was mine alone. Your greatest counsel is your voice within. Some people say it's your spirit talking, or your gut, or your intuition. Whatever you call that murmuring, it can quiet everyone around you and allow you to tap into your truth. Let me tell you something about the first part, when she looks back and realizes that no matter how much they may think they are, they operating in best of intentions, if they have their own limitations, they can't really tell you what's best for you, because they're not going to be on the same plane as you. So their experiences are not going to mirror you or even reflect how your life is, right? So I definitely understand that, because I'll be frank, my older sister, I was actually talking to her about Bozoma, and she was very critical, because Bozoma is a reality TV star or whatever. But I realized, and I had to tell my sister this, look, because we all have different fathers, so we have different, cousins and aunts and a whole different familial structure. I told her, you were raised a certain way. You had identity protection. Like, you had images that you had to, live up to. You had people guiding you. Whereas our situation, we had to get it out of the mud. We were raised more or less in the jungle. So that pushes people to be a little bit more independent in thought, especially for me. I can't speak for my other siblings, but for me, it pushed me to be independent in thought and see that I had to make my own way, and I had to be my own person and design a lot. Because you'll learn in my book, when I write my book, because I will be writing a book, my life was different. Like I said, I'm that child that's the sociologist by nature. So, of course, I wasn't going to do the same exact thing that my sister or, anybody else did. So when she said that, I was like, I get that. And then also, the greatest counsel is your voice within. The more confident you become in yourself and the more life experience you get under your belt, that could not be true. But you also have to have that relationship with God. Because if you're praying, you're always going to have that covering, right? I have faith that I have covering, because I can't just listen to my voice alone. Sometimes I've leaned into my own understanding in things, and then I've made mistakes. But it's been God that I've had in my life that has allowed for me to bounce back with strength from those mistakes. So while listening to your voice is important, always have God with you too, which I'm pretty sure she does, because she spoke about that. Now, I didn't even mention the most important part in terms of her faith. So the reason why, because they prayed, they had a different faith before her father got locked up. But her father, he said he had witnessed a lot of things happen to other colleagues that he had gotten locked up with. So at the time, I guess he didn't really believe in the form of God through Jesus Christ, but there was a Bible in the prison he was in, and he read it, and he started talking to God, and he said, if you are real, I will follow you, I will honor you. I will be the biggest believer if you get me out of this situation fully intact. Head, body, spirit. So mind, body, spirit. I want all of my scruples about me. And he was able to get out. So that's why they converted into Christianity and became believers, which, I mean, hey, it's tried and true, right? It's proven to you. So she also spoke about how her father attended Wesleyan, and so she wanted to carry on the tradition as well, but at the same time she wanted to do something different. She wanted to do something different. She didn't necessarily want to be a doctor because that's what she was studying at first. She thought about doing something a little bit more creative. And sure enough, that's what ended up happening. She was able to get into marketing. She said she mentioned at one point that she told her friends that she was thinking about fashion or maybe music, but marketing is one and the same because it allows for any marketing person to combine elements of pop culture in a strategic way to, sell products to an audience. So, you get a little bit of everything in there. So I love it. I love when, you take unconventional paths down your career and you end up landing somewhere a little bit more magical. Let me stay focused because now we're on chapter 3 and I think I'm doing pretty well. I'm going to give myself at max an hour to do these recaps. So the fact that I'm at the 41-minute mark, we're doing well. But so chapter 3 is called A Little Bit at a Time. And here it's back at the hospital. So like I said, she goes back and forth. And this is when she speaks about how they were going through things in their marriage. Just the reflection she's having while she's in the hospital of things they went through in their marriage and the toll it took on their marriage. And she mentioned here, this is the passage that kind of helped me gather all of that a little bit more. She says, we'd fallen in love instantly and gotten married less than 2 years after our first date. But unlike our courtship, our marriage had been fraught. Starting a family and imagining a future together meant we couldn't paper over misunderstandings of how each of us, a black woman and a white man, experienced the world. Yeah, you can't paper over it. You gotta tackle it. And I think that's also probably what inspired her to just face things, because the more you try to paper or avoid or, work through things on a surface level and not really try to have that understanding, it creates a further divide. It does. And I literally have seen that in my past 2 relationships, actually. So I understood that. And then she says when they had to weather the overwhelming tragedy, losing their first daughter, Eve, because she did have her first child and she was stillborn, she said that was too much for their love. And then they separated. And she says they were living apart for almost 3 years. Again, same thing. Even though my late husband and I still live together, because I believed in that whole nuclear family. We're going to work this out. And, when she turns 18, we'll figure it out. That was my belief if we didn't end up coming back together. Plus, we couldn't afford to live in 2 separate places like her and Peter could. But I got that. And it's crazy how it's also 3 years. So I don't know, man. Like, oh God, I'm feeling it. It's like this lady was brought on my radar for a reason. So she speaks about how she had her first scare of death and she was only 17 years old, and she was in high school. She was a senior. She was becoming real rebellious. messing up. But she said that was a result of her having her first scare. So what happened was she was watching 90210. She was a big 90210 fan. Shout out to 90210. And she recalled an episode where I guess Brenda did a breast exam on herself. Shout out to may she rest in peace, Shannon Doherty. Brenda was doing a breast exam on herself, so she thought, let me do that. And she had actually found a lump, and she was 17 years old. Bozoma, 17 years old. So because she had that brush with death, because once it got biopsy, she learned that it was, thank God it was benign, but it still put something in her that she's young and this could have happened to her. So she started panicking and just freaking out and, reacting as much as she could. Because if you're 17 years old, right, that's all you know is to rebel. You don't know how to really, really with critical thinking and foresight and rationalization, really work through some anxiety, that you're going through and dealing with at that time in your life. Because she was a straight A student, had all these college letters on her wall, and, they noticed something was slipping in her, and that's what it was. She had a scare. She also says that after that, because she wanted to mitigate that and not go through that worry again and kind of stay on top of it, the doctor recommended to her to schedule her mammogram every year on her birthday, and she gets a mammogram now religiously every year, either on or around her birthday. I also started doing that too. I didn't have a scare like she did, but because they try to push you to get mammograms later. I started getting my mammogram when I was 38, and I get them every 2 years now. So, because you don't want to skip that and then miss. But yeah, and I did highlight that part. So that's exactly what she says. She wasn't misbehaving simply because it was for fun. It was a way to distract herself from her anxiety. So again, that's probably why she's like, now, no, you have to face what you're going through, because what happens is you push yourself into self-sabotaging behaviors. God bless her that she was able to learn that young, because some people never learn it. I know people still in their 60s and 70s running from pain. Running to the bottle, running to the cigarette, running. So, yeah. Thought that was, as you can see, she's amazing. She's amazing. What else can I say, right? I have so much respect for her. So much respect for her. And I'm so excited to be attending her workshop when she comes, right? So I'm going to be recapping this book. I hope you enjoyed the first 3 chapters. Next recap is going to be, I believe, chapters. I broke it up. I already broke it up. So next recap is going to be chapters 4 through 5, because they're long. So that I'll try to get that recap up maybe tomorrow, because I have White Lotus that I have to do on Sunday. Right now it's early Saturday morning. It's 1:19 in the morning actually. So I'm gonna sleep well because I don't have anything to do in the morning. Maybe run a couple of errands, get my food for meal prep, work out, but I'm gonna rest tomorrow so that I can be, sharp and get my stuff out and keep at it, right? Well, like I said before, please like, comment, subscribe, and share my videos. And thank you so much for coming to my channel. Thanks for rocking with me. I know I'm all over the place, but my heart's in the right place. And I mean well, but I appreciate the support, and I hope you got something out of this recap. Till next time, peace and blessings. Bye.